Happy New Year, or thereabouts, everyone. At the end of the year, it's nice to take a moment to say a few goodbyes and indulge in a little nostalgia before looking ahead to all that the future may bring. At the close of each year, Turner Classic Movies produce a very touching tribute to the film industry members who passed in the previous year, called TCM Remembers, which I highly recommend since it's so well done. Links in the description. And in 2023, we also had the closing up shop of the DC Extended Universe, at least in its endlessly reworked, retooled, removed, or generally fucked into the ground format that James Gunn and company are supposedly going to get right with their soft reboot in 2024. Good luck with that. Anyway, the DCEU spent a decade trying to catch up to the MCU by repairing a submarine without coming up to the surface, let alone bringing it into a dry dock, with their course corrections and showrunner changes. And the final entry in whatever we're calling that era coming out this past week with Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. So how did the pre-Gunn DC Extended Universe close up shop? Well, let's just say they stayed true to form, making a largely inoffensive mess, but a mess nonetheless. How about we break this thing down? And by we, I mean me. I'm Dr. Balthazar. Like, subscribe, all that bullshit. As an aside, I caught this movie as a matinee at a decent-sized AMC theater, and was literally the only member of the audience. No idiots breathing my air. Private screening for Dr. Balthazar. Very important. Okay, backing up the bus a bit. When the first Aquaman movie was announced, we were still in the midst of the floundering Snyderverse, which raised a few interesting questions at the time. We had a polarizing filmmaker leading the extended DC universe who likes his works literally and figuratively dark, a lead actor in Jason Momoa who looked the perfect cast for Lobo, and according to the rumor mill is going to be doing that very thing going forward, a writer-director in James Wan, best known for his work in the horror genre with Saw and its associated projects, and a story partially set at the bottom of the ocean. The seas are a world where sunlight only penetrates about 1,000 meters into the mesopelagic zone. A world of eternal darkness. A world of eternal silence. The song of the deep is as foreboding as it is alluring to those who have heard its call. So part of me thought this really isn't going to look like the white bread aqua dude from the classic cartoons and whatnot. This could be something dark and intense. Which it wasn't, but it still took itself seriously, and that worked. If you're going to be a clown, I'll humor you until I can go back to ignoring you. If you're going to take yourself seriously, well...
You had my curiosity, but now you have my attention.
The first Aquaman cashed in at just over $1 billion worldwide, on a budget of under $200 million, making it one of the few W's in DC's live-action run, and the only horse in the stable to come in at a 10-figure gross. So okay, if you're mercifully dropping the curtain on this era of the DCEU, finishing with a sequel to the most profitable film in the catalog makes a lot of financial sense. But is there a story to be continued with this film? Are there further opportunities for characters and relationships to develop? Is this a world that is fleshed out enough for audiences to enjoy returning to? Are there meaningful themes to explore? The answer to these questions is sort of, but not really. Before we get into the storyline, let's go in for another false start.
Again?
Not again.
Aqualobo 2 and the Lost Whatever the Fuck has the same foggy lame duck status as the other 2023 DC releases, giving the impression that the studio would like to make back its production budget and then see and hear no more of any of this phase of DC bullshit until Gunn and Safran get their projects underway and collective amnesia somehow washes out a decade of fumbled fuck-ups. The Titanic hit the iceberg a while ago. Let's just get in the last ditty and scramble for a spot in the lifeboat. It may even be counterproductive for people to get too invested in any of the 2023 movies, since that would make it harder to cut bait and start over. It's a semi-committal mess. We're somehow kind of pregnant here. But fairly or unfairly, that uninvested, do enough not to fail, but don't feel like you need to succeed in a big way feeling is a dark cloud that floats over this film's head. Another 500-pound gorilla in the room is Amber Heard, who hasn't bulked up to a full 500 pounds yet, but is every bit the gorilla. I've been asked to do one of my sympathy videos for her, which I appreciate, but one of my preconditions for sympathy is the person in question does no actual harm to others. From the Depp Heard trial records, I don't know if she meets that qualification. Mental health is also something I really don't want to make light of. I've legit had a stalker with borderline personality disorder, and Jesus Christ, dude, fuck me. Hopefully Amber and anyone else that has serious psychological problems gets the right kind of help to manage them and does no further harm to self, others, or me.
You know, this is so bad I can't even joke about it.
Anyway, the filmmakers had the choice to recast the Mara character, leave the script as is and let the public respond in whatever way they were so inclined, or take a middle ground and reduce her screen time to the barest essentials for a storyline to move forward around her, which would probably be the worst of the three choices, so of course that's what they did. Amber Heard was there, which felt a bit odd to me, but I don't think it's causing problems to the film since the news cycle has moved on from her and Captain Jack Sparrow to other Hollywood dumbasses, But the Mera character isn't quite there, which does his story no favors and leaves her character and any connected themes a non-entity. The broad strokes of the storyline begin with an exposition dump that Aqualobo has an infant son and is bored of being king. Black Manta still wants to smoke his ass, and he finds the dead men of Don Harrow from Return of the King frozen in the Arctic, so if he can thaw out a big bad that looks like a cartoon character, everyone's fucked. Cliché CGI action set piece number 1 pops off. Aqualobo needs to free his brother for reasons. Former rivals become friends. Cliché CGI action set piece number 2 pops off. Everyone races to the lair of the big bad for the boss fight. Cliché CGI action set piece number 3 pops off. Hugs and kisses, roll credits. As far as a superhero movie paint-by-numbers plot framework, it's not fundamentally broken. Yeah, I'm looking at you, the Marvels. Fundamentally broken, you clown motherfuckers.
Not a pretty name, is it, High?
No, sir. That's one bonehead name.
In Aqualobo's case, it's the coloring part of the paint-by-numbers that's the issue, with the character development, world-building, and themes just harpooning this project. As far as characters are concerned, Aqualobo is a cartoon wackadoodle. It's very close to a parody of the character from the first movie. Nearly every line of dialogue Momoa utters is a punchline of some kind. You could slide him right into Thor, Love and Thunder, or Shazam, Fury of the Lamewads without issue. Strange as it sounds, if you could somehow mute all the dialogue, mute the classic rock they crowbarred in because James Gunn, Guardians of the Galaxy, but keep the sound effects and musical score, I don't think the audience would lose track of what was happening at any particular point in time, and the movie wouldn't be worse off. The first Aquaman was essentially the story of Aragorn from Lord of the Rings. An outcast loner doing his own thing on his own terms, who has to rise to a crisis and accept the role and responsibility of king, and with it the pressures and obligations to others. Which Aqualobo did. That character arc is done. When this movie reintroduces the theme of him struggling to accept the crown, it felt like, hey, aren't we past that already? They also gave him a kid, which could have been some kind of character arc to explore as he figures out how to balance a career in public service with family obligations, but very little of that took shape beyond some shallow parenting advice from his dad. The infant was just there for lowbrow, piss-in-the-mouth gags and try to raise some stakes in Act 3. If there was a hero's journey or other character development Aqualobo went through during the film, I missed it. He was just a wackadoodle dude having his all-derp moments from where I sat.
Derp! Oh, wasn't that silly, kids? Aren't I a great character?
I can picture Takiki Wakiki and Zachary Levi just loving this take on the character, belly laughing at the endless stream of irreverent banter, and then having sex with each other. But to each of their own. Patrick Wilson's Orm the Ocean Man did have a nice redemption arc. It's not unlike the frenemy dynamic between Thor and Loki in the pre-MCU MCU, and the parts of the movie that I enjoyed most were the ones that traded in that space, or used on-location shots of the sea. Dude got ripped for this film. Nice to see someone who cares enough about their work to put in some literal heavy lifting. I also think Wilson is a great actor, and he and Yahya Abdul-Mateen clearly high-pointed their performances in this film. Mateen's Black Manta Ray was a good villain. Not everyone needs a transformative arc or has to undergo change in a meaningful way, but they do need something, be it presence, charisma, an attachment to a theme, something, so they aren't just evil because mwah-ha-ha-ha.
Evil? Excellent.
Mateen has a menacing presence. Yeah, they kind of beat the bitch out of him in the first Aquaman installment, but he got a MacGuffin to level him up, so that's fine. His revenge against Aqualobo at any cost motive is interesting, but not really explored since Wan and company seem more interested in making the funnies and CGI than character development and theme exploration. Black Manta Ray blames Aqualobo for his father's death, which the movie felt the need to flash back to since flashbacks and exposition dumps exhibit just how little faith they had in themselves and the story they were telling, but it's his perception of himself as the victim justified in the terrible things he was doing that was interesting. His father was killed by Aqualobo in basically the same way Ra's al Ghul was killed by Batman in Batman Begins. That is to say, the villain created a condition of mayhem imperiling themselves as well as others, and the hero elected not to save them. As a society, we don't hold it against Batman or Aqualobo for not saving the villain from the consequences they themselves created. Though we could, and Black Manta Ray does. It's a difference in perspective on right and wrong, as well as a notion that what a person may objectively feel is okay in principle, they may not be so quick to get behind if it happened to them. Personally, I'd rather see different perspectives on morality than fish tits. Wish I was joking. CGI light shows are all derp jokes. But superhero movies in 2023, what can you do? The rest of the characters in the film are non-characters in my book. Functional necessities, even more punchlines, MacGuffins to move the plot forward, whatever. As far as world building goes, the underwater world of Atlantis was too much of a Little Mermaid, happy slappy world for my taste. I don't like Zack Snyder or his movies, so I hesitate to say it ought to have been darker. But maybe if the film just took itself a bit more seriously and chilled on the CGI, there's a world of mystery worth exploring there. There was far too much going on of light and color for me to completely follow what was happening during most of the underwater scenes. I just zoned out like in an MMO where I know the tank has aggro, the healer isn't a total fuck up, the boss mechanics can't cause a wipe, so why should I pay close attention? It's just a light show. For the viewers to invest in Aqualobo's role as king, we also need to understand the nature of his kingdom or its people to some degree. Is it a kingship modeled on the Norsemen or other tribal conquest kings who hold their position as warrior kings that provide victory and plunder on a battlefield? Is it a dynastic monarchy based on a mandate of heaven with religious belief elements that need to be placed into a modern context? Is it modeled on present-day royalty, or more like figureheads and symbols of cultural traditions without the power to make governments? Looking good, big dog. Besides finding the throne boring, what role is Aqualobo expected to fulfill as king that he takes issue with? Fish tits. It's also a world with no meaningful consequences. I'm not saying you need to go around fridging characters to create stakes or for cheap emotional pops, but none of the characters felt like they were in any real peril in this world. Oh wait, they did fridge a dude early on, like an unnamed Star Trek crewman who wears a red shirt. Well, maybe if you're gonna fridge a motherfucker for effect, do a better job executing it. For themes, we have a couple of half-assed concepts that aren't developed with any real conviction. The duty and responsibilities of a leader, in this case the king of a xenophobic separatist nation, is half-baked. The push and pull of family versus career is half-baked. The justice versus revenge and at what cost to a man's soul is half-baked. The strength of family bonds, brotherhood, and redemption theme that plays out between Aqualobo and Orm the Ocean Man is actually pretty good. It's probably the part of the movie I enjoyed most for whatever my subjective preference is worth.
I'm not interested in what you think, Tremwine, or even what I think. It's what simple people think that matters.
There's also a silly-ass theme of global warming as a unifying force, bringing together the separatist nation of Wakanda, I mean Atlantis, and the rest of the world for the collective good of wherever the fuck, and yeah, buddy. Global warming is usually a topic people apply to attacks on the behaviors of people they don't like, since those people hold different political views, as opposed to a scientific topic that's treated with some basic cause and effect or hypothesis testing. This planet is well suited to just over 2 billion human beings inhabiting it at a given time. There are currently 8 billion people on the planet. If 2 people are in a room that can comfortably accommodate 2 people, and it's completely trash and hot as fuck, you have to ask, what have you been doing in here?
Stinks like sex in here.
If 8 people are in a room that can comfortably accommodate 2 people, it's going to be trash and hot as fuck no matter what they do. You don't have to concern yourself with human behavior when human population is so far beyond capacity. That the film doesn't go all in on preaching some dumb as fuck, badly researched, poorly supported bullshit on global warming, or any other social politics topic for that matter, is actually addition by omission. Thank you for not being a Disney product. You remembered you're a movie in the entertainment industry. Well done. Also, I don't know if product placement can be considered a theme, but they could have called this one Guinness Presents Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom. It's not subtle.
You enjoy that, boy. You've earned it.
In summary, I wasn't bothered by the movie like almost anything from the MCU's phases 4 and 5, or left shaking my head in disbelief as of past DCEU works. But I don't think it's worth flipping up a coin or two to watch this one. It's a missed opportunity. I'm a bullshit fake doctor in the profession of bullshit fake doctory, not a producer of films. But if I were, my mandate for the team on set would have been to rewrite about 2/3 of the dialogue, dropping the wackadoodle punchlines in favor of taking the story seriously and developing the themes that were half-baked, cut 2/3 of the CGI budget, see what the filmmakers do about it. I mean, Jaws is the great example of creativity filling in the gaps of technology coming up short for good reason. Sometimes having to make do with what you got instead of getting what you want is a good thing. And recast Mara so they could have used the character throughout the film without the imaginary handcuffs minimizing Cuckoo Bird's scream time. If Maggie Gyllenhaal can take the place of Katie Holmes between Batman Begins and The Dark Knight, any secondary character can be swapped out without losing the audience. Besides, I don't think increased public scrutiny is going to do Amber Heard any favors. I may be Rorschaching things a bit, but I feel like there was a reference to the Star Wars AT-AT, or AT-AT, or whatever the fuck it's called. The Big Walker takedown from The Empire Strikes Back. The horrid Max Rebo band scene from Jabba's Palace in Return of the Jedi, and whatever the fuck that junk ships of the Galaxy Unite bullshit was in The Rise of Skywalker, which made me feel like Wan was just sort of dicking around with this movie, tossing around lame jokes and references to whatever the fuck, because who cares, rather than really locking down the story, characters, world building, or themes with clear purpose, and feeling good about wrapping up this era of the DCU. After producing the highest return on investment for any superhero project in the good ship Detective Comics, I can't picture Wan being too heavily fucked with by the corporate powers that be on a lame duck holdover sequel. But who knows? Movies are a very collective enterprise, and directors probably get more credit and blame than they deserve. On the positive side of the ledger, I like the Aqualobo and Orm the Ocean Man rival brothers, odd couple, former foes team up and better understand themselves and each other part of the movie. So if such a thing appeals to you as well, my prescription for similar storylines would be Rocky III, The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, and 48 Hours. Honorable mentions to Cobra Kai, Thor, The Dark World, and LA Confidential. Anyway, that's my thought for the day. I'm Dr. Balthazar. Like what you like, don't what you don't. It's all your call, Kemosabe.